Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. The roadmap has been updated and we have some interesting new additions. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support. It is truly appreciated. So we have the latest roadmap changes. There are some new additions to the progress tracker, but firstly, for the release view and the 315 build, both the Grimhex Clinic and Crusader Hercules A2 Starlifter have passed their final review. So they have been updated to committed and the cards have been changed to blue. Now this only leaves the shops and patrons AI deliverable, the Redeemer and both the Ares and their weapons, which for the ships we know are not coming in the initial 315 release and will come around the IAE in November. Big thumbs up that 315 is pretty much committed now. We just need those shops and patrons, which I believe they are trying to bring into the Evocati right now. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, for the progress tracker, it says that the downstream teams have begun to extend their planning for Q4 2021, so end of this year, which will be reflected on the progress tracker, and with that, there are a few new deliverables. The first one is called Player Item Shard Transition, and this says, with the introduction of fully persistent shards, items and ships that are left in open spaces are bound to that shard until the player collects them and stores them into an inventory or parks the ship at a landed location. In order to provide a more frictionless experience, we will implement a feature that automatically stores these freely placed items from the shard when areas are streamed out and places them into a different shard when the player logs into a new shard. This allows players to find their freely placed ships and items that are left in open space, regardless of which shard instance they are assigned during login. So quite a mouthful there, but I think what this is saying here is that thanks to all the work that they've done on both persistent streaming and server meshing, we will be able to place our ships or items anywhere that we want to on any planet, moon or whatever, and they will persist there indefinitely until we return to pick them up. Now this is a huge function that will have so many benefits beyond just being able to find something again or maybe stashing something away for later on. For example, salvage. If someone has left their ship and claimed a new one, we may find that ship and salvage it perhaps. What's even more interesting is that the work on this actually ends this month, so I'm hoping that in 315 this will be a possibility of leaving things lying around and returning back to them as and when we need them. Although it is cutting it close for a 315 release, so it's more likely going to be used in 316. But either way, I am very excited to have things properly persisting and not constantly disappearing. It won't even seem real when it happens because everything in Star Citizen just disappears at the moment. So very important piece of tech. And we will talk more about this later on in regards to salvage, so do listen out for that. The next cool addition is called DNA Head Texture Updates, which is set to complete towards the end of November, and this will update the head archetypes to improve the texture quality for all DNA heads in the PU and Squadron 42, and this feature, according to the latest monthly report, is intended for Alpha 316, which is the end of year patch, which, as CIG puts it, it will massively improve the quality of the character customizer and NPC heads. So really excited to see how much of a difference to character quality this makes, and I feel 316 is going to be a pretty exciting patch to finish the year off with. A great Christmas present. So the next deliverable added to the progress tracker is called the Greycat Industrial Salvage Backpack, which, as you can imagine, is concepting, designing and implementing this variant of the Greycat Specialist Backpack geared specifically towards storing salvaged material. Now this backpack only has a 2-week sprint between November and December, just in time for 316, and it is wonderful to see salvaging specific features being added, as it does fill me with a lot more confidence that the salvaging mechanic is much more likely to make it into 316. And as we know, for the first implementation of salvaging, it will be hand salvage only, with ship-based salvaging and the Vulture coming next year. And now with the ability for ships to persist in their last known location indefinitely thanks to this player item shard transition, as well as the physical damage and breakability deliverable from the physics team also coming to an end in November and December, and this will allow ships to realistically get damaged by weaponry or when colliding with other ships, locations and planets. I am seeing a bit of a clear pattern here for the first iteration of how salvaging or hand salvaging will be, and involve basically any ship that has been damaged and left either in space or planetside, to persist for players to legally, or I guess illegally, depending on the situation, get salvaged. Now, of course, I don't know if this is the exact plan that CIG are doing for salvage, but when you look at all the work that's being done, it is certainly looking like the potential direction that they are taking. And CIG have specifically spoken about how players will maybe crash their ships planetside, and if they just leave it alone, then it will become proper salvage. So although it may sound like I'm jumping to conclusions here, which I suppose a little bit I am, there is a lot of logic behind it based on these new deliverables that we're getting. So fingers crossed we hear more about this at CitizenCon, as I'm trying to contain my excitement. We will definitely talk more about this over on Twitch though today, so do check me out over there if you want to join in on the conversation. So moving on, we have a few new AI deliverables. Firstly, AI landing improvements. This will enable AI ships to land and deliver reinforcements on non-structured ground areas like planetary terrain, where a predefined landing area and assistance from air traffic control is not available. So this means AI will be able to fly their ships and land basically anywhere on a planet, and as it says here, deliver reinforcements, which I suppose is hinting towards the first use cases for this tech. But also this deliverables work finishes early November, so again, it may not be long until we will be fighting AI planetside, when a group of NPCs fly in and reinforce the enemy. Saying that though, it is probably more likely that this is needed to improve the security systems around planetside locations, maybe even some upcoming dynamic events, but having like NPC law enforcement coming in to aid others would be a great addition. So a great feature which will be impressive to see. The next AI deliverable is called Navigation Links, Elevators and Transit. Now this says it is implementing special adapters to inform the navigation system of potential nav mesh connections offered by elevators and transit systems that will create potential connections that rely on specific additional conditions to be met, like a train or an elevator appearing. This is where NPCs will be able to use them and understand when it's appropriate to exit. So basically, getting NPCs capable of using any form of transit system that players can, like trams, elevators, trains, and so on, just to allow them to move around the verse properly. The work on this begins at the end of October and lasts only 3 weeks, finishing mid-November. And so the final AI deliverable is called Civilian NPC Movement Improvements, which are various improvements to the animation and behaviors of civilian NPCs to make them feel less stiff and robotic, which they certainly do right now, allowing them to move in a more natural way. It will also improve the appearance of their awareness of the surrounding environment and other NPCs in their vicinity. Now this is a great addition, and according to the monthly report, they are really on with improving the NPCs, which of course we don't really see much of due to the server degradation as we play in the PU, but once that's resolved, likely through both persistence to some degree and mostly server meshing, NPCs should be behaving as the subsumption logic intends, and if CIG are cleaning and improving them, they should look pretty decent when it is done. Now the work on this has been ongoing from June, earlier this year, and comes to a close at the end of this year, so right in the end of December. So also added to the progress tracker are many various medical outfits for all of the various hospitals and clinic locations. We have Lawville, Levski, Area 18, and even Outlaw Medical, which I assume is more for Grimhex or somewhere else, maybe Pyro. Each deliverable is implementing variant outfits and loadouts for the staff, so quite self-explanatory. Next we have Xenothreat Armor, which involves developing multiple armor variants for the Pyro Gang Xenothreat, and it makes sense that they need armor for this gang, as one day when we do finally travel through to Pyro and visit Ruin Station, we will be seeing the gang in person. The work on this ends in early December, so it's a sign that CIG are really gearing up for Pyro and server meshing's release, likely early next year. Although I suppose this Xenothreat armor could simply just be for a dynamic event, so I will try not to get too ahead of myself. Next we have a Squadron 42 specific deliverable called Character Creator, and this says developing the player character creator for Squadron 42's single player campaign. So quite straightforward and self-explanatory, and the work on this lasts 13 weeks but actually finishes early to mid-November. And so the last new addition is called Name Resolving API, which says engine implementation for an entity class name resolving service. No idea what this is, but it is from the Persistent tech team and has 3 weeks work beginning mid to late November and ending early December. So, there was a previously removed deliverable that has now returned. It is the fire extinguisher, and with this fire hazard system of how fires will start and propagate throughout an environment realistically, the extinguisher is clearly needed, which starts work just after the fire hazard work ends at the end of November and lasts 2 weeks till early December. And I fully expect to see this fire hazard stuff in action at CitizenCon this year, as it's a really impressive system, and we've seen a lot on it as it progresses through its development, but recently it's gone a bit quiet. So there you have it. That is this fortnight's roadmap update, and it was a very interesting one indeed, and I'm really hoping that I am right about this salvaging stuff, as that would be an incredible system for the end of the year. A new mechanic, a new career to pursue. It would be phenomenal, and it would explain why they have been holding off on salvage, because they do want to do it justice and not just bring in a very basic system. They even said that their new TO0s are going to be a bit more fleshed out than what we've had in the past, so it would make sense why they've been holding off. But with that said, if you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. And as I say, we will be talking way more about this over at twitch.tv/supermacbrothers. Ryan, you're all more than welcome. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.